There you go.
Welcome, our wonderful friends from around the world. We are so excited to be together today for our High Five Live broadcast. Part of the series of Gathering. We're Scott and Angelle Anderson, and we are so thrilled today to have two of our dearest, most wonderful friends that absolutely are mentors in our lives to be with us, and we'll be telling you more about them. So as you watch, we'd love to hear where you're watching from, and if you want to make any comments, we will strive to answer those questions after the broadcast is over.
Great. And I'll tell you just a little bit about them. They wrote a very short bio. We could go on and on, but
We can add to it, though.
what they said was that they have been recently released from the, as leaders, and they call them leaders, I guess, because saying president and spouse or president and sister, whatever, is easier maybe just to
Mission
say
leaders.
the leaders, the mission leaders of the Dakota, Bismarck, North Dakota Bismarck mission. And they have only been home like 2 weeks, 1 week, week and a half.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks.
Yeah, and they're already doing this for us. I think it's amazing. These two have been blessed with 7 children and 5 grandchildren, darling grandchildren, I must say. Sister Howell enjoys creating art. That's an understatement, right?
I do love it, yeah.
So good at it. And teaching calligraphy at Salt Lake Community College. And President Howell will return to BYU, where he has worked for 30 years as a teaching professor in the School of Education.
But also the director of the Salt Lake Center
Yes.
for a long time. I don't even know how long, but a long time.
Right?
And also our dear friends, President Howell was our stake president, and he sent a couple of our children on missions.
Welcome.
We've had wonderful experiences with them. And Sister Howell served on the Arts Council forever with Angelle.
The
And
Bluffdale Arts Advisory Board.
lots
We've
of
had
fun
some great
experiences.
times together. So we appreciate them being here together today, or with us today. And it's hardly, we don't even know where to start. I think we'll start by asking, what was it like for you to receive this mission call as mission president, as mission leaders, and find out finally, because you knew you were called, and then months later, you found out what mission you would be presiding over. What was that like for you?
It was an intense time. I'll tell you, we get called in and just have an exploratory interview. And then they say, this is just to fill you out. We don't know if we'll call you or not. Just hang on and wait.
So you're on pins and needles.
Very long 4 weeks for me, not as much for my husband, but it was very long 4 weeks for me. And then we got called in by President Eyring, and he extended the call to an English-speaking mission. And they had given us permission to talk to our daughter, Liberty, who was coming with us. And we had another daughter at home, Callie, who would be graduating. And Liberty picked all these amazing, exotic English-speaking places in London, Australia, Boston, Jamaica, India, and all these wonderful places. And she picked a few places she was sure the Lord would not send her to finish out her junior and senior year of high school. And one of them was the North Dakota Bismarck mission, because did the Dakotas even exist? We have a lot of people say, there is really a North Dakota? And it's the least visited state in the United States. And so when we got the call, she was gutted. And I think everybody said to her and to us, oh, you're going to need a warm coat. Oh, my goodness, you're going to freeze. And she came home from high school one day and she said, Mom, I'm going to hit the next person that tells me I'm going to freeze. And so it was, we were excited to serve. And my husband was really excited to serve in the North Dakota area. It was close to his mission in Wisconsin. I was excited. I was scared about the weather, to be honest. I really was. But it was an exciting time getting ready. It was the craziest, busiest time. Put our house on the market. You had to get it ready, get sell. And then they had, video calls all the time. And we had to go down to headquarters, just different trainings. And they kept you busy.
Oh, yeah.
Those couple of months prior to leading up to it. And it was almost a relief to go into the MTC because it was finally there, and all the temporal stuff and everything that we've been doing the last 2 weeks back home was behind us. We could breathe deep and then just start the mission. So, but it was a surreal time. I'll be honest. We were like, wow, you couldn't even picture what your life was going to be like. You know what I mean? You're
exactly.
trying to imagine it, but
Yeah, the one thing that maybe helped the most is about a month before we entered the MTC is that we had the privilege of being called into the office of, in our case, Elder Holland, to be set apart. And that setting apart was very important in the ministry that was ahead of us, especially with the pandemic. And then one thing he said to me in my setting apart, and he mentioned it 3 different times, that my health would be blessed. And the first year out in the mission field was really, I mean, it was the hardest thing we've ever done. And then the pandemic became even harder than that. But I did have a lot of health issues. I've been blessed with good health my whole life. And in that first year, I picked up my first set of kidney stones, and they went in the first time to remove them. And the urologist told me that, only 1 out of 10 ever have to come back for follow-up surgery. And I happened to be in that category of 1 out of 10. And so
just heart things, everything. We're just, he was
so there
in
were,
the doctor all the time.
I just, I'm so grateful for that setting apart and for the promise that, don't stress too much about your health, take care of it, deal with it, do what the doctor says, but you've had an apostle's blessing that you'll be able to finish the work in spite of your health. And so it was an adventure, and that's a long answer to a short question, but.
That's so important.
No, it's perfect.
So,
thank you for sharing.
You were called, of course, before COVID. You served during and all of that. It's amazing what you've been through, the life-changing experiences. How did you see the Lord's hand in the work in your beautiful mission?
I'm going to just start and then let my wife spend most of the time on that question. With the call of President Nelson as the prophet, one of the first changes of the many he's made was he reduced the time of the mission leader training by a day. This was his first mission leadership training as the new prophet. And so all of us mission presidents had an extra day we didn't know what to do with. And so the 3 of us that were coming out to this area in the North America Central area.
We had the mission president from Montana.
From Montana and from Nebraska. The 3 of us said, hey, let's just go to Mount Rushmore. And it's kind of, equidistant to each of our different areas in Billings and Omaha and in Bismarck. And let's just hang out for a day and enjoy our last day, our last supper, I guess. And so we enjoyed that day together, the 3 of us, three couples, nervous about tomorrow and what was ahead of us. And it's a good thing we really didn't realize what was ahead of us. But we went to Mount Rushmore, and while we were there, and that was in our area. Our mission is the largest geographic mission in the United States. We cover all or part of 5 states. But while at Mount Rushmore, we noticed some Jehovah's Witnesses up on the mountain, and they had a station and a booth, and so I'm thinking missionary work. Why are the Jehovah's Witnesses on Mount Rushmore? And I can't believe that the federal government would allow, these Jehovah's Witnesses to proselyte. And so that planted an important seed. And I followed up on that not too long after being in the harness and learned that there is a First Amendment privilege at the national parks for religious representation. And so we began the process of saying, okay, if the Jehovah's Witnesses can be up on Mount Rushmore, well, then so can we. And we learned very quickly that the park superintendent wasn't too happy about us taking advantage of that, and that they'd been okay with the Jehovah's Witnesses because they really, nobody ever came. The whole time we were there, we never saw them talk to anybody. But long story short, we were able to introduce our sister missionaries to Mount Rushmore and received an additional 6 sisters to our complement. A complement is how many missionaries are assigned to a mission by the missionary department. And even though we are the largest geographic area, we are also sparsely populated in many rural communities, and our complement was 130 missionaries. So we were able to increase that for sister missionaries on the mountain.
That has become awesome.
It's amazing.
That's become one of the most wonderful miracles. The week after we went through all of the hoops, all of the applications, the head of the missionary department, Elder Brent Nielsen at the time, toured our mission, and we took him to Mount Rushmore, and he was able to meet our sister missionaries, and it's been an interesting experience. Our sisters just have something special about them, and we always have people around our booth. And
we have a big picture of the world with all the temples in every country. And then we put a "Where are you from?" And everybody comes up and they tell the sisters where they're from, and then they quickly bring up on their phones the temple from their area. You know, so if they're from, you know, I don't know, somewhere in Germany or you're anywhere, you know, they've got a temple somewhere in that. And so, or anywhere in the United States. And we have so many temples now dotting the world that they can bring up the closest temple, and then they give them a sticker. And it's been a phenomenal missionary opportunity that started that very before we even became mission leaders, before we ever even, we were in our mission, but we hadn't even met with the former mission president.
And we literally have seen just miracle after miracle after miracle. And I know you said to save to the end, but I'm just going to insert now, if that's okay. One of the
anytime.
Yeah, one of the spiritual experiences, one of in fact, our first sister missionary that I felt impressed to assign to Mount Rushmore, told me later in her mission, President Howell, I need to share with you just one phrase from my patriarchal blessing that I never, ever knew how it was going to be fulfilled, especially when I was called to the North Dakota Bismarck mission. But she said that my voice as a missionary would reach people from every nation, kindred, tongue, and people. And she said, North Dakota, there's 4.2 cows per person. Really? How will my work as a young missionary, which was very specific in her blessing, reach every nation, kindred, tongue, and people? And she said it was certainly fulfilled on Mount Rushmore, where 3 million people a year visit this national monument. And that's as many people as visit Temple Square. But in our case, all of ours are primarily non-members. And I've been told that since we arrived, the Jehovah's Witnesses have not returned. And the park superintendent now has fallen in love with our sister missionaries, and they now refer to them as the Rushmore greeters. So anyway, that's but I'll let Sister
That's
Howell
miraculous. Wow.
to talk about COVID and just our work with all of the international missionaries. And
so COVID hit. It was we had our very best month ever in March with baptisms, everything. January, February, March, we really had just felt like the mission was grasping the vision, and obedience everything was going well. And then COVID hit in the middle of March and everything got shut down. And then we lost a lot of missionaries. So we have 17 Native American reservations, and we had a lot of senior couples called as Native American mission leader support. So we lost our senior couples, all but 2. We lost, and that was like 12 couples. So, and all of our reservations shut down. So we had fewer areas. And then we had to send a lot of missionaries. One of our assistants had to go home because of health reasons. And we sent a lot that probably in retrospect, because they had asthma, didn't need to be sent home. That was really rough. We had a couple with diabetes that had to go home. And it was a really tough time, I think, for the mission. Demoralizing to see one of their beloved assistants go home, and all these other companions and people, and our numbers dropped. And then mental health, a lot of the missionaries just being stuck indoors, even a few went home for mental health reasons. And our mission just kind of in April, really it shut down, and we could do outdoors time. Fortunately, my husband had been inspired to get an app approved on the missionary's phone, which is called Billion Graves.
Oh, yeah.
And that became a lifesaver for our mission. And other missions followed suit afterwards. But he'd asked for it in 2019 and been turned down. In the beginning of 2020, he asked for it again, and they approved it. And that one little app saved so many of our missionaries, because they were able to do real service outdoor time, and they just take pictures of all the gravestones in all the cemeteries in their areas, and then they uploaded the pictures to family, to Billion Graves, and then it's accessible to Family Search. And that little project kept a lot of our missionaries sane because they were outside, they were serving, and we got newspaper reporters to, publish peace and talk about them. And that really got a lot of our missionaries through that crunch because they couldn't do anything. They couldn't talk to people. We couldn't knock doors. And we started doing, then we started also doing a lot with social media, Zoom, Messenger, lessons online, Facebook, Instagram, everything just started, we had to start doing all of those things too. And then starting in May, the first week in May, we started getting missionaries every week from the international missionaries, the reassignments. And from May till the end of July, we only had 1 week where we didn't receive anywhere from 8 to 16 new missionaries. So then we went up to over 100 above what our complement should be. So we were about 235 at one point, and no senior missionaries except we had one senior missionary that was called to be a Native American couple. They were serving down in South Dakota, and they were both young enough that the church allowed them to stay, and they pushed back pretty hard, and they were allowed to stay. So we brought them up because the reservation closed, brought them up to the office, and they just filled in miraculously well. And then we got another live-in couple to come help us. And we had another couple that stayed down in South Dakota with us as well and helped, as a counselor. But it was interesting that the Olsons that came up and helped with all the housing and all the finances. And we had to get a bunch more apartments. We had to furnish those apartments. We had to get a ton more cars and everything. It was just so much work. And it was interesting because I found out just a couple of weeks before we went home that Elder Olson's stake president, when he set him apart in January of 2020, set him apart and said, "You will become your mission president's right-hand man." Well, he's going to a reservation in South Dakota.
In a town of 500.
4 hours away from the mission home. How is he, But the Lord knew COVID was going to hit, and he knew that Elder Olson would be right where we needed him and his wife. And they came up and literally became, they just kept the mission running, did all the finances, housing, and it was a monumental task. To find all the housing, to get more apartments, and then to furnish all those apartments as we kept
there's
getting.
More cars, there's more accidents. So
it was just.
It's the bane of a mission president in a
But
area
we
like
saw
ours.
miracles like just the placement of the Olsons, just saving us. And then we had another senior couple, like I said, the Freemans that stayed in South Dakota and helped, because the mission's so large, it helps to have, and helped with everything. And then just honestly, we started trying different things, experimenting with Facebook. And these missionaries, like the prophet and all of them, and I think one of the general authorities heard him say, a little child will lead them. It's prophesied. These kids grow up knowing how to do this technology. And when we first came out to the mission, they had all gotten their smartphones
like
in May,
a month before.
and we came out in, the end of June, and the church said, have them use these smartphones. And we'd go, how? And the missionary department would go, they'll know. And the missionaries didn't know, but they didn't try. But then put into COVID, these missionaries took off because they knew how to do stuff. And with my husband's giving him all these ideas and setting things up, we started Google ads and Google search optimization and all these things just to do it. And the title of our podcast was, No Unhallowed Hand. And that comes from Doctrine and Covenants 121, I think 32 or 33, but it's how the Missouri River, it talks about no unhallowed hand can,
No puny arm.
or no puny arm, and that's that. But 121 says no puny arm can stop the Missouri River in its decreed course or turn it upstream. Then, to allow the Lord to pour, or to hinder the work of the Lord pouring out knowledge on the heads of his saints. And we would drive the missionaries by the Missouri River and say, can you put out your arm and stop that river? Can you push it upstream?
Oh, wow.
And it became that symbol. This is the Lord's work. This, it's my work and my glory. And it's his. And he's not going to stop this work. And no COVID will stop this work, and no puny arm, no unhallowed hand. And that was probably one of the more significant memories we have. Do you want to share at the end of 2020?
Well, we ended up doing as many as 20 different pilots for the church. We became a lead mission for social media. Whereas, even though I've had some exposure to maybe project management and working with technology in my experience at Brigham Young University, this was something that I was taken back by. But I felt as the Lord was sending me new missionaries, and I came to know them and came to know their backgrounds and their areas of interest and expertise, I could see who the Lord was, how the Lord was wanting me to use these missionaries. So we really ended up becoming a very sophisticated, very advanced mission when it came to using these tools. And it became very clear to me, and we began praying as a mission that the Lord would help us to learn the language of social media, just like God would help our international missionaries learn the language of their country. This is a language, and God said he would reach all people through their own language. And social media is written in the language of PHP and Python, and the Lord sent me some very, very, very talented missionaries. Plus, we started doing some talent and interest surveys and trying to find things that they were good at. The Lord blessed us with some music missionaries. So we created virtual choirs that went all over the world.
They were amazing.
Yeah.
We found missionaries with art talent and began using their art talent for many of our posts. We found some videography talent. The Lord sent us a young missionary from Hawaii that probably is already very wealthy based on his apps that he had written before his mission. And he became and is right now leading the church in the missionary department in using search engine optimization, where when people look at a church near me, our churches used to be rock bottom. Now, if you go to Bismarck, North Dakota and say, I want to find a church near me, guess which church comes up number one? Our church. And we got permission from church public affairs to take pictures of all of our buildings, including the chapels. And we placed them in Google. So any of our meeting house listings have now not only beautiful pictures of our buildings, but we also have 8 questions and answers. We now have the Book of Mormon and other products available.
Like Family Search.
And
addiction recovery.
And then they gave our missions at that time a $2,000 ad budget. But I knew the other missions weren't using it, so I used theirs. And we, nobody has spent more, but yet it wasn't very much. And we started finding people. And one of them, I'll never forget one of them saying, you would never have found me any other way but through social media. And so we began, even though April, May, June, there were really no baptisms, we started now using these new tools. And we kept on hearing Elder Uchtdorf say, God's not surprised by this. We're not going back to the past. We're going back to the future. Find ways now to innovate. And we began seeing miracles. The missionaries started learning how to use this and started seeing success, started believing. We kept on talking about building a boat like Nephi. Never done it before, but if the Lord can give us instructions, then we too can go and do.
That's right.
And we realized this wonderful miracle. And we got to the end of the year, and I'll let my wife tell you exactly what happened that these missionaries in the North Dakota Bismarck mission will never forget.
We only had 10 solid people on date in December, and we needed 21 baptisms to reach the same number of baptisms in 2020 that we'd had the year before,
which was a record year.
And the missionaries, we just all said, hey, this is God's work.
It's
no
a miracle
puny
we
arm.
got this close.
We're within striking distance. But December just looked terrible in numbers and people on date. And we fasted as a mission, and we worked hard. And we came to December 31st, and we had 2 baptisms that originally we weren't sure that we were going to go through. And we thought we'd finish the year 1 short, and came back then and counted everything up. And we hit the exact same number in 2020 that we did in 2019.
Wow.
So we say
That's
no
amazing.
puny arm. The Lord really
No
honored
puny
the work
arm.
of these missionaries, because really April, May, June, even July, nothing was happening because we couldn't visit people. You couldn't you could FaceTime people, but that was about, or message them.
And most missions throughout the world reached about 60% of where they were the year before. And so our mission was privileged and blessed in a very special way to have seen that even COVID, even the pandemic, did not affect the work of the Lord. No unhallowed hand and no puny arm stopped us from still finding the Lord's elect, and in ways finding some of the elect that may not have been found otherwise. So as hard as it was absolutely miraculous. And the biggest challenge we have is with former missionaries and old timers trying to impose the old way of doing missionary work on new young missionaries. It's a very, very, very different day. And all of us need to be open to the fact that the Lord has pivoted the way he wants to do his work. And now we see very clearly, more than ever, how he can reach every nation, can reach people before he comes again.
And something like you two are doing with this podcast is just amazing, because this is what we need members to do. And it says it in the handbook, flood the earth with testimonies of Jesus Christ. And it is member work, and the missionaries do the teaching. And so what you two are doing is exactly.
We applaud what
really,
you're doing.
what you're doing is exactly what
the key
Lord.
now is to get all the members on board. And that's where our emphasis was this last 7 months, was now we need to help the members know what we know and help them to become empowered and to leverage the tools God's given us with their orbit, their friends.
Right.
And have them share what they know with them. Love, share, and invite.
So do you want to say a word about what we all can do to be better missionaries?
Let me start by
what you
saying,
said.
well, Elder Bednar says it best. He says, stop praying for the full-time missionaries. He says, please, they don't need any prayers. Pray for your own
missionary
opportunities. Pray that you, as members, will magnify your calling, that you'll have the courage to open your mouth in a natural and normal and guilt-free way and invite people to come and see. Love them unconditionally, whether they accept the invitation or not. And then just a small little thing that would really help is next time you have the missionaries over, hopefully for a meal and a message, have a picture taken with the missionaries and then post that picture to your own Facebook page or Instagram page. Tag the missionaries. And a lot of people that may not know that you're members or may not make the connection until they see the picture will say, oh, I didn't know, or hey, do you think those two young missionaries could come visit me? But that way we reach everybody that's in your friend group, that might have an interest, righteous curiosity.
And then learn what your missionaries in your local areas are doing, and share some of their feed or their content with your friends.
Some of their posts.
Some of their posts, because they're not members, and then they see those uplifting messages. So just sharing, and then inviting people to come and to your, it doesn't have to be, oh, come and join our church. No, just come. Come to our home for dinner. Come invite them. Just simple. I love the website share, churchofjesuschrist.org/share, because it
has hundreds of ideas
of normal ways that members can share the gospel.
Yes, thanks for bringing that up. That's such a great website. Yeah. You've given us so many ideas. I'm excited just to go home and talk about them and see where we can increase, because yes, we do get to do this forum, which is amazing. And we thank High Five Live for this great service that they are doing, spreading the gospel on social media. And so many are that we can all join in, like you've suggested and be more involved. And you are such great examples of that. It'll be exciting to see where your life takes you now, as you will always be missionaries, and you will always, always share the gospel in creative ways, because that's just who you are. And we can't thank you enough for sharing today with us and our audience. And we invite all of you who have watched today or who will watch to go ahead and share this on social media. Share this wonderful broadcast with the Howells and listen to their ideas and capitalize and enlarge what they have told you. Be involved. Share this wonderful gospel of ours.
And we just want you to know the reason for that, of course, is because there's nothing more joyful than the magnificent message of the Savior. and his beautiful healing power for all of us to be filled with hope in a time that's become hopeless. For we know he lives. And thank you so much for watching today. And thank the Howell so much for being with us. And do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.